Now, in economic development of our country, one important policy that has been introduced by P.V. Narasimha Rao government in the year 1991 in our country, and which is one of the benchmark in the growth and development of our country, that is about the LPG model. Policy of LPG. What does LPG stands for? LPG is liberalization, P for privatization, and G for globalization. This is LPG model of growth. This model was introduced by P.V. Narasimha Rao government, then Prime Minister of India P.V. Narasimha Rao, under his leadership in the year 1991. And at that time, Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister of India, and they together introduced this model of growth, LPG model of growth. Now, we'll discuss this three model LPG, that means liberalization, privatization, globalization, one by one. First, we'll take liberalization. Liberalization contains two things. First, to allow private sector to run those industries which were earlier reserved for public sector. Okay, that means private sector can run the industries which was earlier in the hands of public sector, which were earlier in the hands of government authority. Okay, second is relaxation in the rules and regulation made for private sector. At that period, it was a scenario that sometime private sector had to take out license to produce different things and to establish different industries before the introduction of LPG model of growth. So, first objective that they had taken under this model of growth as to liberalize those restrictions made on the production process of different things. Okay, restrictions were given to the private sector. That means they did not allow different private sector to establish different industries. That process had been removed with the introduction of liberalization, but some of the industries had taken by the government under their leadership. Apart from that, most of the industries, private sector could initiate their process of development. What type of policies they had taken to liberalize those industries, okay, and to give more relaxation to the private sector for the establishment of industries? First, abolition of industrial licensing. They have abolished industrial licensing system. Second, they have given concessions from MRTP Act. And then third, contraction of size of public sector, that we have already discussed. These 3 points that we have discussed already, and you just keep in mind. First policy they have taken as abolition of industrial licensing. Second is they have given concession from the MRTP Act, and then the contraction of the size of public sector. Okay, so this is all about liberalization. Next, move on to the privatization part. Privatization, second indicator of LPG model, privatization. Privatization refers to any process that reduces the participation of state or public sector in economic activities of a country. It implies a greater role for private capital and enterprise in the functioning of an economy. That means privatization gives more freedom to the private capital and enterprises so that they can function well and they can establish their own venture for the development of our country, where this policy reduces the participation of state restrictions on those private enterprises and private capital ventures. The next term where G stands for is globalization. Globalization, very important indicator in this whole LPG model. The term globalization indicates the opening of the economy for the world market. In other words, it implies interaction of economy relating to production, trading and financial transaction with other countries of the world. That means it had opened up Indian economy to the world market, so that export and import policy, the EXIM policy, got its strength, so that Indian economy could revive from its stagnant nature. That way, it started interacting with other advanced economies of the world through different process of production, trading, financial transactions, etc. Globalization reduces the distance among the countries of the world. It makes the whole world just like a small village, so that everyone, every economy, if one is lacking one part, so that they can take this thing from the other economy. As that way, the EXIM policy had also got its strength. It make the world a very smaller one. This is globalization.
Now let us look at the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean covers an area of 73 million square kilometer. It is the third largest ocean in the world. The Indian Ocean is surrounded by the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia on its north, Southern Ocean on its south, Australia and the islands of Southeast Asia to the east, Africa and Madagascar on its west. The Indian Ocean has an average depth of 4,000 meters. There are a few volcanic trances in the Indian Ocean. The most important trance is the Sunda Trance. Arabian Sea, Persian Gulf, Bay of Bengal, Andaman Sea, Red Sea are some of the important seas in the Indian Ocean. There is a small number of islands in the Indian Ocean. Some of the major islands are Sri Lanka, Andaman and Nicobar Island, Indonesia, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, etc. Now let us learn about the Southern Ocean. The fourth largest ocean in the world is the Southern Ocean, which covers an area of about 20 million kilometers. The Southern Ocean is the extension of the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean, located at 40 degrees south latitude. The ocean remained frozen throughout the year due to its location in the South Polar region. So in this image, you can see the Southern Ocean. Now let us learn about the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is the smallest ocean in the world. It has an area of 14 million square kilometer, which is about 1/5 of the Indian Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is surrounded by Asia, Europe and North America. It has a circular shape as it surrounds the North Pole. It has an average depth of 3,500 meters. Like the Southern Ocean, the Arctic Ocean also remains frozen throughout the year. So in this image, you can see the Arctic Ocean.
Another important organization that was formed during this time was the Ahom Satra Honmilan, formed in the year 1916 under the presidency of Lakshminath Bezborua and its secretary Chandranath Horma. The objective of this Sabha was to enrich the mother tongue Assamese and contributing towards its development and also preserving it. We had discussed in the last few classes about the Rayat Sabhas of Assam and how they played a very important role in regenerating the political aspects of the peasants. During the 19th century, there were numerous attempts to organize these Rayat Sabhas. The Tezpur Rayat Sabha in Dorong district and the Nagaon Rayat Sabha in Nagaon were established to solve the problems of the peasants. These Rayat Sabhas helped in raising the voice of the newly introduced land settlements in Assam by the colonial state. It also pressed the needs for the abolition of grazing tax, redistribution of land tax and the banning of migration of peasants from East Bengal. The leaders of the Congress also attempted to mobilize the peasants under the banner of the Rayat Sabha. Thus, in this case, the Rayat Sabha of Naudwar and Soydwar were very strong in between the years 1930 to 1939. And during the period of civil disobedience movement, the most important demand of the Rayat Sabha was the reduction of land tax by 50%. The next organization that we will be talking about is the Ahom Sabha. Formed in the year 1893 by Padmanath Gohai Borua, this Sabha pressed the needs for privileges which should have been given to the Ahoms under the British administration. The Sabha also demanded for providing opportunities to the Ahoms by considering them as a separate community in terms of economic and educational backwardness. In 1910, the Sabha was renamed as the Ahom Association.
Hello my dear students, today we are going to take the lesson 2 from your political science part, that is International Organization, the United Nations Organization and others. Here we are going to cover the following topics. First, why the United Nations Organization, that is UNO, was formed. Second, the main objectives and principles of UNO. Third, the main organs of UNO. And the fourth one, the UNO on human rights. So, from the key points we have noticed that we basically have to discuss the United Nations Organization in this chapter. Okay, let's start the chapter. First, we'll take the aim and objectives of United Nations Organization. The United Nations is an international organization which was formed in the year 1945 after the end of the World War II. That is from 1939 to 1945 there was the period of World War II and the United Nations Organization was formed in the year 1945. This organization replaced the League of Nations. League of Nations, founded on 10th January 1920 with an aim of preventing war and promote peace and security. But it was not successful and there was the outbreak of World War II. The effect of World War II was more disastrous and left people horrified. So to maintain the peace and security and promote a feeling of safety and security, the United Nations Organization on 24th October is celebrated as the UN Day all over the world. 193 member states. How many? 193 member states formed the United Nations, and each of the member states has one seat in the General Assembly. The headquarters of UNO is located at New York in USA. The main aim and objectives behind the formation of UNO is: first, to maintain peace and security. Next is to develop friendly relations among nations. Since after the Second World War, people got horrified and post-war situation was very disastrous. So in order to maintain peace and security, already one organization has established, that is UNO, and second, UNO was established basically to develop friendly relations among different nations. The next objectives is to encourage social progress. As we all can imagine, a post-war situation where people got horrified, everything got destroyed. So social progress is must, and that is why to encourage societal progress and along with the development of the human being, the United Nations organization has established. Next objective is to improve the living standards of the people. In order to develop the economy, the living standards of the people must have to be developed. After the World War, the living standard of the people must have to be improved to a great extent, and keeping that as a main aim, the United Nations organization had started its work. Next objective is to protect human rights. Every human being must have to get their rights, and for the protection of those rights, United Nations organization had taken several measures. The next objectives behind the formation of United Nations organization was to solve international and cultural problems. Whatever the problem occurred in terms of international relationship as well as in terms of the cultural scenario, United Nations organization had established to remove those problems and to work on those problems so that the nation become a developed one. Okay, these are the basic objectives that were taken behind the establishment of United Nations organization after the Second World War. Okay.